How's it going? Got some great news for you guys. I don't know if you guys have if you guys have read what happened, but if you paid attention to our lives, hold on, I'm sorry, let me get this thing out of here. There we go. If you guys had paid attention to our lives before when we spoke about the bricks and minifig situation, I highlighted that there was some, very key things that I thought that they should do to sort of try to not only make everything right that they did wrong, but also to do right by the Manziel family. And I got to be honest, guys, Bricks and Minifigs completely blew me away because they literally did that. I guess they did their own investigation, and, they found out that, Josh and the other guy who actually, okay, so the original owner of the Kaiser Oregon Bricks and Minifigs store was actually the Gormans. Okay. And after they had their store repossessed, which happened, because see, the Gormans owed Bricks and Minifigs a lot of money, and that's why their store got repossessed. And again, all of this is public documentation. It's not really about what one person says versus the other. You guys have to understand that when a company like Bricks and Minifigs publishes certain things on their website, if they were not true, they would be liable for a lot of bad things. Okay. And so, and they've been pretty upfront and honest. Bricks and Minifigs corporate, I want to make a difference because, after the Gormans got their store repossessed, there was another team that took over, and that is where that team is the one who along with the Gormans are responsible for all the bad things that ever happened. The Gormans completely, had all these and it's exactly what I said I thought it looked like. The Gormans had different inventory sheets, one public, one non-public. One they didn't show the Manziel family, and they weren't following any of the proper procedures for basic business, whatever. So after their investigation, Bricks and Minifigs corporate, okay, I want to say corporate because they found out that Joshua Jackson, and that other guy, Kai, whatever, also did wrongdoing, and they fired them. They actually fired them completely, got rid of them, terminated the contract. And it's important to understand that because I think Bricks and Minifigs got a lot of bad rap for how they initially handled things, which I agree with. But dude, they've been nothing short of stellar. And in the announcement they just released yesterday, they even said, hey, Brian Manziel, we've done our investigation. It's still going to be ongoing, of course, which is understandable, but we will make you whole. Anything that's missing, but we want to share all the results with you. And I think that's occurring. And they're going to make the Brian Manziel family whole. Anything that's missing after the investigation, they're going to make Brian Manziel whole. After they fired Josh Jackson and that other guy, because apparently they discovered that those two obviously did a lot of wrongdoing, man. And if you look at the footage that Reckless Ben posted, that's that guy. That guy is not Bricks and Minifigs corporate. That's just a random person who said, oh, I would love to own a Bricks and Minifigs franchise. He's one who caused the most. So, in my opinion, Bricks and Minifigs corporate was absolutely right to fire that guy. He should not ever represent anybody in any business situation ever, because that's a terrible way to do business. But the most important part is that Bricks and Minifigs corporate, the offer has been extended to Brian Manziel and his family that they will make them whole. Whatever's missing based on the inventory, based on what he was not provided. And, I think they're doing that. Guys, it's easy to say, oh, well, it's because of pressure, and pressure, like public pressure, does have a part to play. But if I can be honest, they probably were going to do this from the beginning, no matter what. And the reason I say that, man, is because did they have to do their investigation? It's not fair for Bricks and Minifigs corporate to just, and again, have they done that? Remember, they try to trust that Josh guy initially, and it turned out to bite them. And that's why I know for a fact that's another reason why they fired that guy. Because that guy lied. That guy lied about reckless Ben. He lied about the actual collection. That actually, the situation with the collection is, when they actually got hands on, eyes on the store, it was never there. Parts and pieces were there. The previous owners before Josh Jackson, the Gormans, they did something very not above board with the Manziel collection. So if we're going to say who's to blame, the Gormans are. They 100%, all things point to the Gorman family as being, and I say the family, the owners of the previous Kaiser Bricks and Minifig store. They were the ones who misplaced and honestly kind of did some shady stuff with the inventory list that, that's why Brian Manziel is in the situation that he is in now. That's what their Bricks and Minifigs corporate investigation has revealed. Because you got to remember, Bricks and Minifigs corporate is very different than a franchise owner that wants to own a store. Okay. Hey, what's up? Corporate has nothing to do with all the problems that happen. They just sort of, got hit with everything. And then that Josh guy made everything worse by lying. And he's the one who lied to the Forks Police Department, said all those lies. Because if you guys haven't seen it, the full video's out now. So it's important to realize that, man. So I'm very happy to say, and it makes me happy because, I never got the impression that Bricks and Minifigs corporate were bad people. They were put in a tough situation, and they had to do their own fact finding because they couldn't trust the Gormans. They already defaulted and owed Bricks and Minifigs money, so the Gormans are out the window in terms of credibility. And then they have this new partner in that Josh Jackson or Kai, or whatever their names are, Kai and Josh. They're bad people, man. In terms of bad business partners, they lied. They lied and they did things not above board and said some very horrible things over the phone to reckless Ben. So it makes sense why they fired them. And I think most importantly, the thing that I want to really touch on in that, I'm so happy that Bricks and Minifigs did this. They literally said in their release, which means that that's money in the bank. The Manziel family will be made whole by Bricks and Minifigs. Even though it wasn't their fault, they said, hey, look, our logo was on the store. You made the deal with Bricks and Minifigs. So, even though it wasn't us, we are going to make you whole. And I think that's incredible. And, people who are saying we're still going to boycott Bricks and Minifigs, no way, man. Bad move. Dude, I've never even spent a dime there, but I'm going to go buy something there. And you want to know why? Is because, dude, they did what's right. And yeah, look, people should say, oh, well, they should have done that. Dude, they didn't have all the facts, man. They didn't have the info. So, no, it doesn't make sense for them to just blindly hand out money because the previous store owners who owed them money and were bad at money said that this is a situation. And then these new people that they don't even really know about, who try to take over the store lied. It's reasonable for Bricks and Minifigs corporate to have done the investigation. And now that the results are back, they said, okay, these new guys that were going to do the franchise, they're bad. They're out. They can't be trusted. They lied to us. They lied to the police. We can't have them working for us or even affiliated with us. And of course, dude, yeah, man, guys, don't read into, they both came to an agreement. Man, that's the way the business world works, dude, because at the end of the day, it's all about solving problems and taking care of the people. And had they just tried to, oh, well, we're 100% firing him for wrongdoing and try to, dude, that's going to open them up to more legal problems and more fights. It's so much easier for them to cut bait, which they did, and they fired them. They don't even get to own a Bricks and Minifigs franchise ever. They're permanently banned. So, that's very satisfactory to somebody who has been keeping up with this entire situation. But the better part is that they said Brian Manziel we've got our investigation. Here's the results. We want to share more with you, but no matter what, we're going to make you whole. Our name was on the building. That's the right thing to do. Dude, I'm going to support Bricks and Minifigs. And I recommend you do too. Because, at the end of the day, that's a terrible situation for anybody to be in. Anybody. And like, look, man, there's still a legal side of it. And I hope, like, look, man, Reckless Ben, I hope he solves whatever issues that he has with Bricks and Minifigs. Because at this point, Bricks and Minifigs is doing exactly what he said that he wanted to do in the very first video. They are going to make Brian Manziel whole. And again, I just want to be honest. I'm a business owner. I think Bricks and Minifigs was always going to do this. Yes, you never want to take a chance. The pressure definitely helps. And the pressure really helped with exposing, the Josh, the store owners after the Gormans. They were not good people at all, man. And they lied, dude, and they caused all this. They are probably, just if the Gormans are responsible for the Lego collection disappearing, and whether they did it intentionally or not, I'm not here to judge them, but if they're responsible for that portion, then the new Kaiser organ owners that are now banned, Josh and Kai or whatever, they are the other primary cause of this whole debacle. It never had to come here, but those two people are mainly responsible. You can't blame Bricks and Minifigs corporate for wanting to do a proper investigation, wanting to do their due diligence, wanting to make sure that they got all the facts right as best as possible. And I think that's where we're at. So bravo, hats off to Bricks and Minifigs. That's the good guy thing to do. They didn't have to do it. I'll be honest. Because they already are going to have to deal with this. So they were already going to lose business revenue for something Bricks and Minifigs corporate did not do. I know we want to, like, if our Toyota car breaks, we want to blame just anything and everything Toyota. Like, oh, your car sucks. They broke. You screwed me. Or, whether they do it with Ford or whatever, right? Dude, it's a store that sells Legos and other mini figurines, okay? And dude, it's basically like a toy store, but they have rare collections. They sell Lego, they sell all the other brands, and they're pretty popular. It's kind of like if you're familiar with Magic the Gathering, it's sort of like a shop like that, but for like Legos and minifigures. So it's pretty popular. But yeah, man, I'm proud to say that, Bricks and Minifigs did the right thing, and did the American thing. I mean, dude, there's no greater part of being American than, doing what's right in a business deal, and Bricks and Minifigs corporate had no skin in the game for this deal. But guess what? They said, hey, this is America, man. You trusted us in your collection. While it wasn't us per se, Bricks and Minifigs corporate, we understand our name was on the building, and, you were wrong, and that's not right. And they're making it right. And that's how every business in America used to operate, man. I just got to be honest. So it's a breath of fresh air. Again, I know there's a lot of sticks and, spears out for Bricks and Minifigs. And, dude, they're doing exactly what Reckless Ben wanted in the first place. They're doing what Brian Manziel wanted. Brian Manziel can get his full, get what's owed to him at this point. He can do that. They've already made the offer. It's an open offer. And they probably will do it unconditionally, because they already have their investigation. And the Manziel family was the victim here. They're not even claiming to be the victim. They acknowledge Brian Manziel is the family that was the victim of, unfortunately, two different business owners who just didn't want to do the right thing. So give them a chance. They're doing the right thing. And I just think that speaks volumes of their business for them to, do the right thing. And they didn't do it just because of pressure. They posted their investigation, so they used the facts. They did fact finding, and that's That's where we're at today. So bravo, Bricks and Minifigs. I'm going to buy something. I'm going to help support that great business, because that's what this is about, man. You know, the Gormans haven't never offered to make Brian Manziel whole. The owners after the Gormans never offered to make Brian Manziel whole. Bricks and Minifigs Corporate is the only entity today that has offered to do that. Not even Reckless Ben. You know, maybe he's done that publicly, or privately, but I haven't even seen a statement from Reckless Ben saying that we will make Brian Manziel completely whole, you know, with all this money we've got on the GoFundMe. So anyways, bravo again to Bricks and Minifigs. Thanks to Reckless Ben. I hope you solve whatever legal issues you have with that company. And, you know, I'm so happy for the Manziel family. They're going to be made whole by Bricks and Minifigs Corporate, stepping up, doing the right thing after the investigation. So can't ask for better conclusion than that. You guys take it easy and be safe. All right. Later.